The NFL draft is now over, so it's time for me to give my draft grades, grading every pick for every team. This time, the NFC North. Starting with the Chicago Bears and looking at the grades I've given to the individual players, you might be quite surprised by the overall grade of this draft class. But obviously, it starts with Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan. Personally, I would have gone with Tyler Warren from Penn State. I was a little bit lower on Loveland than people like Daniel Jeremiah, etc., who had him in the top 10. He was a top 20 player for me. But with Cole Kmet in a 2 tight end set, which Ben Johnson loves, that's going to be insane for this offense in terms of an upgrade as that tight end 1, essentially making Kmet the tight end 2. And as a wide receiver, which Loveland basically is with his ability to run routes and create separation, then he's absolutely fantastic. He is a great player. And it's just another weapon for Caleb Williams in this kind of new look Bears offense led by Ben Johnson. And really, that offense is, on paper at least, is looking unstoppable. And then after all that, even when they added Colston Loveland in the first round, they went back and added Luther Burden, the wide receiver from Missouri, in the second. And I already made a video about this in my Steals video. This pick was absolutely unbelievable. It was a fantastic, fantastic pick. It was great value where they got him, and he's a great player. I've always said with Luther Burden, he's a dynamic yards after the catch weapon. He's not a great route runner though, and there's questions about effort with his blocking. And I think the evaluation of Burden was murky enough for me whereby I wasn't shocked that he fell out of the first round. I had him at like 25 in the end. And what I said with Burden was that if he was to go like top 15, we might look back in a few years' time and go, oh God, Luther Burden at 12, that's pretty ugly. But with him going at the top of the second, I think we're going to look back at that pick and go, I can't believe he fell that far. And really, that shift in a few picks, I think is going to be the difference between Luther Burden being an okay wide receiver or a really great one, because now he's got that chip on his shoulder. He's gone to a great situation in Chicago, which he might not have gone to otherwise. He might have gone to, say, Carolina or something like that if it was a bit earlier. And he is going to be in this offense that schemed up touches guy, I think. Like, they're going to want to get the ball in this guy's hands. I know DJ Moore kind of is that guy already, but I think he can be a bit more of a dynamic overall receiver. I think he's more well-rounded than Luther Burden is. And look, if DJ Moore doesn't return to the 2023 version of DJ Moore that we all know and love, then maybe Burden can begin to kind of encroach on that role a little bit. And now you've got Caleb Williams at quarterback. You've got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden at wide receiver. You've got Colston Loveland at tight end. I don't personally care for Cole Kmet. Bears fans, I know you love him. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to list him there. Those are the best receiving weapons in the NFL, point blank. I think they were without Luther Burden. And you could argue that if you even took out Colston Loveland and left Luther Burden in, it still would be. Like, Burden as a wide receiver 3 is the best wide receiver 3 in the league day one, I think. So those two picks, really good picks. Not the value for Loveland, which held that back a bit, but definitely the value for Burden. But fundamentally, two absolutely fantastic picks. And now Ozzie Trapillo and Shamar Turner, they're fine. Darius Alexander, the defensive tackle from Toledo, was on the board at this point. I would have gone with him personally, and it was a bit early for both of those guys for me. That's why they have those grades. And I mean, what's this guy called? Hippolyte? Ruben Hippolyte III. No shame in it. I've never heard of that man in my life. I don't know who that is. I don't know many people that do know who that is. I've not even heard of him, let alone watched the tape. So I'm not commenting on the player here. The C- is only because he was 350th on the consensus board and ended up going in the 4th round. So I think we can agree it was a bit of a reach. He might be, the best linebacker in the NFL in 5 years' time for all I know. But fundamentally, as a pick right now, that's the grade it's getting. Zara Fraser was the cornerback from UTSA was one of my defensive sleepers. And he's got good developmental potential. He can be a potential starting cornerback in a few years' time. Needs to kind of refine his technique a bit. But physically, he's got the long arms, super rangy, 6'4", and he's a press coverage cornerback. I think getting that in the 5th round is a really good pick. And then Carmen Ongai, the running back from Rutgers, aggressive, downhill, nasty running back. He's that kind of David Montgomery-esque player. I'm not saying that someone like Ben Johnson, a great offensive mind, is trying to just simply recreate what he had in Detroit. Different players, different skill sets. But I do think that he clearly values that kind of downhill thumping running back. Now, I look at the rest of the running backs in this backfield. You got DeAndre Swift, Roshan Johnson, and Carmen Ongai. there's no change up there. There's no like speed or acceleration or agility guy. I mean, maybe Roshan Johnson could be that. I've always been high on Johnson. I will continue to believe in him until he shows me otherwise. And maybe in this Ben Johnson offense, he will prove the player that I thought he could be coming out of Texas a few years ago. DeAndre Swift, I am not a DeAndre Swift truther whatsoever. I think he is a painfully average running back. But again, Swift is kind of like a downhill guy. He's got terrible vision. He's not someone that's going to make something like make people miss in a phone booth. So I kind of think that that's a bit of a miss there. But look, in the 7th, you really can't complain about getting a good running back. Now, all of these players I like. There's nothing really amazing value-wise, barring Luther Burden, I think. And what I do think about the Bears is they had the potential to really hit this draft out of the park. Like the way they're positioned as a team and the players that were available on the board when they were picking. I really do think they had the potential to have an A+ draft. Now, I'm giving this initially a B- because they got good players like obviously Colston Loveland, obviously Luther Burden, Carmen and Guys Fraser. But again, I'm kind of left wanting a little bit more. However, it's actually going to end up getting a B because I'm giving it a bit of like a Ben Johnson bump, if you will. It might be unfair, but these are my rules, guys. These are my draft grades. It's not a cement every single time. I just think that Ben Johnson is going to have this offense red hot with the players that it now has in it. Carmen Ungai, Luther Burden, Colston Loveland, like those 3 guys being added to an already like fairly stacked offense with DJ Moore, Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze. I just think that the draft will be better in reality on the field than it will be on paper, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of giving it that little bump up to a B. Now, the Detroit Lions. Personally, I'm not mad on this draft, but I do have a bad track record of grading Lions draft classes. Infamously, I gave the Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell draft class, 2022, 2023? I gave that an F. And obviously didn't age well. I'll happily admit to that. I'm not one to dig my heels in about these sorts of things. Don't worry. And this is a very Lions draft class, it seems. But looking at the players, we've got Tyleik Williams, the defensive tackle from Ohio State. I'm not mad about this pick, guys. I'm not mad about this pick. I'm happy to be proven wrong here, but I just think getting a run-stuffing defensive tackle who doesn't really have upside in rushing the passer like, say, Kenneth Grant does, is more of a day 2 guy for me. Like, I appreciate that stopping the run is important, and Brett Coleman had a really interesting tweet where he said average NFL third down conversion percentage in 3rd and 5 is 46%. In 3rd and 7, that drops all the way down to 36%. So that is kind of a tweet which shows the value of being able to stop the run, being able to keep them in 3rd and long situations rather than getting that help, rather than allowing them to get to 3rd and manageable. But again, I do think you can get those guys pretty regularly in free agency. They're kind of always available. And I think in the draft, you can get one of those guys on day 2, frankly. Now, Tate Ratledge, the guard from Georgia, I think he's a really good pass blocker, dominant, powerful as a run blocker as well. He'll start at right guard immediately. And obviously the offensive line is like the Lions' lifeblood, right? It's how they get their run game going. It's how they protect Jared Goff, who, as we well know, is no Patrick Mahomes out there in terms of avoiding pressures, right? Like, he is a very immobile pocket passing quarterback. If you have an offensive line weakness, you've also got a quarterback weakness, if that's the case. Now, Isaac Teslar, I really liked him as a gem. He was one of my offensive gems, big, powerful, athletic, slot receiver, good hands. I really liked him. Again, he was a sleeper for me. But he was a sleeper. He was someone that I was going to expect to be going day 3 of the NFL draft, and they took him in the 3rd round. Now, this is the thing with the draft, is that it's not just about the players, it's about the value. And fundamentally, I think that's bad value for Tesla. I think there were better receivers on the board at the time in the 3rd round. And I think you could have got him later if you really wanted him that badly. He was, and the Lions traded up to get him in the top 70. He wasn't even a top 100 player for me. And I get that he fits what the Lions want to do, again, identity-wise, but it's still rich. The fact that I liked him as a player and the fact that he was a gem for me, or a sleeper, is what saved this pick from being a D, but it still wasn't a good pick, I think, if we're being brutally honest with ourselves as a Tesla fan. And then we've got Frazier the guard, Hassian in the edge. They're bolstering the trenches. Dominic Levette, someone I've been following for a while, a fellow Dom, got to back the boys. So he gets an A purely for the name. It's a late draft pick. I don't put that much stock in the overall grade on that, don't worry. But I mean, overall, this is just a very Lions draft class, right? And again, The Lions are kind of getting a bit of a bump from me here. I think I'd probably would have given it a B minus, but I'm going to give it a B. I'm happy to kind of admit that the Lions draft well, and they get the guys to buy in with the culture, and they get guys that fit their identity and guys that fit the scheme. And looking at the list, right, this is a Lions draft class, right? Run stuffing defensive tackle in the first, dominant guard in the second, big power slot in the third, like the bolstering the trenches after that, like. This is a Lions draft through and through. And so whilst I appreciate that sometimes I can't see the vision with the Lions, I'm not in the draft room, the end result on the field is pretty clear to be seen, right? Like they're a very good team because of how well they've drafted. And they are very much a team which prioritizes the team over the individual. So here I'm willing to admit that these picks serve that, which is why they're getting the B and not the B minus. But I do think the Lions could have drafted better here. So we're going to meet in the middle, Lions fans. I hope we can agree on this one a bit more. I'm going to give you guys a B. Now, the Green Bay Packers is a draft class that I'm pretty certain I'll be going against the grain on with my assessment of this draft, but I'm going to call it how I see it. Now, we start with Matthew Golden, which for me kind of embodies this entire draft class with the Packers. He is a wide receiver. Packers obviously needed that. It's an exciting pick. You haven't drafted a receiver since like the early 2000s or whatever it is. It was in person. It was a great moment. I loved it. But despite being a wide receiver and the Packers needing a wide receiver, he doesn't fit what the Packers like truly need. They need a dude. And I don't just mean like a number one guy. I'm sure Golden could maybe be that at his high. I'm not personally sold on that. Could maybe. But they need an alpha wide receiver one, an outside guy. They've got Jaden Reed, Romeo Dobbs, Lontavian Wicks. Those are all like wide receiver twos, wide receiver threes. I think Golden is a high-end wide receiver two, and I think you've just added another high-end wide receiver two to already a high-end wide receiver two in Jaden Reed and a high-end wide receiver three in Romeo Dobbs. Do you see what I mean? Like, they're all kind of the same mold of wide receiver. There's no really like diversification of skill sets in that receiving core. You don't really have anyone with height. You know, Christian Watson, yes, but he's injured. He's unreliable now at this point in his career with all his injury histories. I just don't really know who's your like outside guy that's going to continually beat like press man coverage. I think Golden struggles with contact. I think he's not that physical. He's 5'11", 191 pounds. He's not going to be that guy. I think he would be great in like a Vikings situation, let's say, a division rival where Jefferson's the one and he's like the two in kind of that Jordan Addison role. So I just don't know. And then you've got Anthony Belton. This was a reach for me. He was scraping the top 100 maybe for me at the end of the day. And I don't know why they drafted him. It was a reach. They drafted Jordan Morgan last year and they signed Aaron Banks to a massive deal. Kind of surplus the requirements. If you want offensive line depth, you can definitely get that later in the draft. That was a really odd pick. I'd say that was just a bad pick outright. Now, Savion Williams, the wide receiver from TCU, this is what I'm talking about when I say diversification of skill set, right? This guy can be and also with regards to Matthew Golden, he is not a yards after the catch guy, or at least wasn't at college. And that's not to say he can't be in the NFL. There's a big difference between not being able to do something and not having shown you can do something. Golden's definitely in that last bucket for me. But he's not a yards after the catch guy. Doesn't seem like a real dynamic guy when he does have the ball in his hands. Not really a tackle breaker. So on an offense that thrives on yards after the catch, in the Packers offense led by Matt LaFleur, I just don't get it. But this is the thing. Savion Williams, the wide receiver from TCU, he is that guy. He's that kind of Debo Samuel, Cordarrelle Patterson-esque style of player. Like, yeah, they've got Jaden Reed, who's 5'10", 187 pounds. They've got Matthew Golden, 5'11", 191 pounds. No one is the 6'4", 222 pounds that Savion Williams is. And that is the diversification of skill set that I was looking for. This guy could be the yards after the catch guy, could maybe even take some snaps at running back, could maybe take some snaps at wide receiver, be that kind of the offensive Swiss Army knife, kind of put him where you need him. I think he's a really good fit for this offense. Actually, I really like this pick. I know a few people don't, but I do. And then Baron Sorrell, I like this pick. I'm not going to lie. I know Braden Swinson was on the board. That does kind of hurt this grade a little bit. But him coming out of the draft, him coming out of the green room in Green Bay, come on, who doesn't love that story? And he's a really good player as well. Stats-wise, he's got a really strong profile. So I like it. And then the rest of the picks, solid. No issues, nothing amazing. Now, overall, I'm going to give this a C+. Packers fans, I know you're not going to like that. But this fundamentally hinges on the evaluation of Golden and Belton, I think. And I'm lower on them, definitely lower on Golden than most. Belton as a player I wasn't low on. I just think he was overdrafted. And so as a result, I don't like this draft. I think it's fine. And I'm happy to say that I'm in a minority here on how I see Golden. So, if I was being brave, I might have gone with maybe even a C minus. But I have been wrong about receivers before. And he is going to a very friendly offense with what Matt LaFleur runs. So, like I said, I'm happy to be wrong about Golden and the Packers draft. But at the moment, it's getting a C+. And finally, the Minnesota Vikings. Again, another draft that I think I might be seeing this one differently to other people here. And this draft, right, looking at the players that are on the screen now, the Vikings are very much paying their bills for the 2024 draft when they drafted Dallas Turner and JJ McCarthy. They didn't have a lot of picks. I thought they might actually trade out of the first round because they only had 5 draft picks going into the draft. And obviously the pick after them with the Texans at 25, we traded out. So I suspect the Vikings' phone would have been ringing for the Giants to trade up. And I'm surprised they didn't kind of take them up on that offer considering how few picks they had. But nevertheless, came in with 5 picks, made 5 picks. First one being Donovan Jackson, the guard tackle from Ohio State, hero of Ohio State's season. Pretty surprising pick. I did think there was a chance this guy could be drafted in the first round. I didn't think it would be this early and by the Minnesota Vikings, frankly. And you know what? I kind of get the vision here. They're shoring up the offensive line ahead of JJ McCarthy's first season. They added Will Freeze and Ryan Kelly from Indianapolis at left guard and center. And now they got Jackson at right guard. He also offers swing tackle ability in case of an injury. It's a really safe pick, very conservative pick. But given the fact that this team is ready to compete in the playoffs, potentially push for a Super Bowl if you can really get the stars to align, are they, S-tier team? No, not with JJ McCarthy, but that's my point, is that if you can insulate him as much as possible, he's obviously got really strong wide receivers in Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and then a receiving tight end in TJ Hawkinson, and now he's got a really good offensive line. I kind of get it, right? I kind of get it. Like, the rest of this roster could compete for a Super Bowl. JJ McCarthy is the one question mark. Try and remove as much uncertainty around him as you possibly can. Now, Ty Felton, decent wide receiver who will be a role player, will fill in for that wide receiver 3 spot from time to time, if not the full time, actually, to be fair. But annoyingly with this pick, and what kind of bumped it down a little bit for me, was that Jalen Royals and Torrey Horton were both available there in the 4th round. So I might have gone with one of them, maybe even been a bit more aggressive and tried to trade up for a guy that fell potentially. And then all the day 3 picks are solid, right? They also did get Sam Howell in the 3rd, which is worth mentioning. I'd like that. That's a good kind of backup kind of break glass in case of emergency kind of quarterback. And overall with the Vikings, I kind of said it at the beginning. This is last year was the big draft. This is kind of the finishing touches, paying the bills. It's going to get a B- from me. I know a lot of people hate this draft class, and I'm not bullishly high on it by any means. I just think it's kind of solid. And with the fact they only came in with the 24th overall pick and then didn't pick again until the 3rd round, it's pretty hard to make a splash in the draft when you have such little draft capital. And that's the bill they pay for the Dallas Turner trade up back last year and taking JJ McCarthy as well. So fundamentally, I think they got good players at not valuable, but important positions, right? Offensive line, wide receiver, a few other positions like that. I really don't hate it as much as everyone else does. Like I said, I see the vision, protect JJ McCarthy. It's going to get a B- from me. But what do you guys think of the NFC North's draft grades and their hauls? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree or disagree with my assessment of them? Make sure you subscribe for more NFL grades content. They are coming out at you. I'm going to be finished with them all by the end of the week, I hope. Going to go round now to the west, the south, and the east. So subscribe to not miss any of those. But I've been your host, Dom Corbs. This has been Corbs NFL. I'll see you on the next video.